Hey guys, it's Jack here, and today we're going to be talking about Saint J. Garcia Saturn and everything that's been going on with him in the most recent chapters of One Piece, all the way up to the most recent chapter of One Piece, chapter 1125. So for obvious reasons, this video is going to contain massive spoilers, and we're going to be getting into those spoilers immediately. So if you guys really want to avoid all of that, then you need to click off now, because we're going to be getting into it straight away. Now, assuming that everyone that doesn't want to be spoiled is gone, let's get straight into this video. The most recent chapter of One Piece was another doozy. Oda has just been releasing chapter after chapter of just bombshells, and even fucking more bombshells. And this chapter was probably what happened here, and the impacts and implications that this have on the story is huge. And the main takeaway, the biggest talking point, I reckon, of the most recent chapter is everything revolving around Saint J. Garcia Saturn. And basically, what happens is that Garling, the guy that everyone's assuming is Shanks's ancestor with the crescent moon beard and hair and everything, he has now been appointed the new god of science, defense, and technology. He is taking over Saturn's roles. He walks into Marie Joie, into the room of authority, with absolute swagger. He sits himself down on the chair, and he says that York is now in, his command. He's going to be the one that's going to be looking after York, and I'm now the new god of science and defense, and you guys have to deal with it. And the other Gorosei members are like, what's this insolence you're doing? Sitting down on our chairs, on our sofas? How dare you do this? But once Garling explains himself, they all kind of start looking at him with what I would class as fear, and it's not like a fear as them being scared, but a fear with the realization of what this implication means. Because it's not as simple as Garling just taking over his position and Saturn going on his merry way. Saturn doesn't get demoted, he gets freaking killed. Because what's happening is that in Egghead, Saturn is surrounded by all the vice admirals from the Buster Call, and he's talking to them about the failure of Luffy and everything escaping, of the bigger failure of Vegapunk's message being spread across the world, and he's like, he's sitting there without a care in the world. Well, he has care, he's panicking, but he doesn't realize what's about to happen to him. And what's about to happen to him is that he gets freaking killed by Imu. Now, Imu Sama, sorry, come on, Jack, show the Lord his proper respect. So, Imu, well, we find out that it's Imu, but Saturn is talking to the Vice Admirals, and all of a sudden this black, what I'd like to describe as miasma, starts coming out of him. Very reminiscent of his devil fruits, so like that black stuff that we see on the page that surrounds the Gorosei's devil fruit forms. This black miasma starts seeping out of him. He starts screaming. All the vice admirals around him are like terrified. Like, this is one of the 5 leaders of the world. In the vice admirals' minds, these are the 5 most powerful people in existence, because they don't know about Imu Sama, and they have to watch powerlessly as what I would like to describe as Saturn aging. It's like he's instantly decomposing. His skin starts getting shriveled and mummified. He ends up losing all the skin, and all that's left is a skeleton. And he's kind of monologuing about, like, Imu Sama, why, my lord, why are you doing this? And then we see a panel of Imu, and that's us realizing that Imu is the one behind this. And Imu is monologuing to himself here. Whether or not this is telepathically communicated to Saturn, because we know the Gorosei have that ability at least, we don't know. I mean, it's pretty irrelevant at the end of the day whether or not Saturn is here. Actually, no, I take all that back, because Saturn actually answers Imu, so there's definitely telepathic communication going on. This isn't just like nice imaging or anything like that. They're actually communicating here. So Saturn, telepathically communicates to Imu. He questions, why are you doing this? Like, why have I displeased you? And Imu lets him know that you're getting punished here because you failed to prevent Joy Boy from allowing the Straw Hats to escape. And Saturn, and I've got to admit, rightfully so, kind of says to Imu, like, how was I possibly able to foresee Joy Boy using freaking Conqueror's Haki, like, from the past, essentially. Because we all know what happened. Joy Boy stored all Iori's Conqueror's Haki, and then it unleashed out of Emmet, and that, like, allowed the Straw Hats to escape. That's, like, freaking, you'd have to be Yuha from Bleach with the Almighty to be able to see that coming. It's so left field that it's ridiculous. So it did seem to be a little bit unfair about, Saturn getting punished for that, but failure is failure in Eames' mind. It's the biggest. It's not even so much that he failed, I reckon. We know, and I did a video on this, that Joy Boy and Imu Sama had a past relationship in some way. In that video, I go into what that relationship could have been. Go watch it. It's on my channel. And it's because it was Joy Boy that I think Eames punishing. Jesus, Jack, come on. That's punishing Saturn so badly here. Because it's become personal. It's not just like, oh, great, I wish we could have stopped them. Wish we could have stopped Vegapunk's speech. But, at the end of the day, we're still controlling this world. We'll dictate how this goes. It's the fact that Joy Boy essentially one-upped them, and I think that's bruised Imu Sama's pride a little bit, and he wants to, get his anger out, and he takes that anger out on Saturn, unfortunately. Now, Saturn's a massive scumbag. We don't care if Saturn dies. But it kind of... I don't think Saturn would have done... I don't think Imu would have done this if they escaped any other way other than Joy Boy's intervention here. But before we go on to what's exactly happening to Saturn here, it's important to bring up the events that kind of led up to this. Because if you remember, and I did a chapter review on this as well, so if you want more in-depth view of it all, go watch that. But it was Mars. While the other Gorosei were fighting the Straw Hats, Mars was nowhere to be seen. And then all of a sudden, all of the Gorosei, except for Saturn, get teleported back to Mars. And we see Saturn being left in front of Emmet, and he's speaking to Emmet. And I found that very, very interesting, because I wasn't sure if Saturn was left there deliberately, or if he was left there accidentally in the sense that Mars, I'm assuming Mars was the one that summoned them all back. It could have been Imu, but I'm assuming that it's Mars. Or that if Mars, just for whatever reason, wasn't able to teleport Saturn back. I reckon, you see, even now, it's hard to say. It could be either or. It could have been Imu telling Mars, hey, don't bring Saturn back. I want him to stay there. And he might be telling Mars this under the guise of, Saturn's got more work he needs to do on Egghead, so just summon the other three back. But Mars summons them back, and Saturn's left there. I found that really, really strange. I thought there was going to be some sort of more conversation with Emmet, but we don't get that. We just see in this most recent chapter, because it's been a couple of chapters since we saw Saturn, saw the Gorosei leave and Saturn be left on Egghead. And it appears that, there was no real conversation there between Emmet. What I think may have gone on is that Emmet used too much power and kind of just shut down. Because the only way I can see us having a flashback of any conversation that happened between the two of them would be from Emmet's perspective. So unless Emmet's making another appearance in the story, which I don't really think so, any conversation that they may have had would have just been, we won't get the knowledge on that. Because Saturn has gone back to the Vice Admirals, he's on the ship, and he's casually having a conversation with them all. So it gives me more reason to think that Imu purposely told Mars not to bring him along. Because if he didn't, and he actually wanted Saturn on that island to accomplish a deed, I would think that us as the audience, Oda would have shown us some sort of interaction with Emmet. Because that's the only reason that he could have deliberately been left there, other than to just be killed without the other Gorosei being, totally aware of it as it's happening. But we need to talk about what this means for the story, because it gives us a lot of different avenues we can go down. Obviously, Imu is taking something from Saturn. is what he's taking from him. Is he just taking away his immortality? Because it did look like Saturn, the way he died, it looked like he was aging incredibly quickly. The way he was decomposing like that, it seemed like whatever was grounding him to, reality, to the laws of like the human body in One Piece, was completely taken from him. So whatever was keeping him alive, Aim decided to like take back out of him. Now, question, is that just his like immortality in quotation marks? Is it his devil fruit ability as well? Assuming that everything that Saturn can do is a result of a devil fruit. It could be a different power, or it could be like the things like the teleportation, the head popping and stuff like that. That could be a different power from the devil fruit. We're not entirely sure, so for simplicity's sake, I'm saying that it's all a devil fruit ability. Did Ian take that from him as well? And has he taken these things to give them to Garling? And that brings up another interesting question. If Ema doesn't take the immortality from Saturn, can he bestow immortality on Garling as well? Or is 5 Gorosei, 5 immortal servants of Eam, the totality of what he can present and gift his subordinates? I imagine that it probably is, otherwise there's no real reason why he couldn't make more people immortal. Now, he might be thinking he just wants to do 5 Gorosei, so their loyalty isn't in question, Too many people, spread it too thin, there's more ways that people could turn on you and betray you, which is true. But with the level of authority that Eam has, and the level of authority they have over the world, if Eam could do it, I reckon he could make more immortal subordinates. So I reckon it's capped at 5. Now, if the devil fruit wasn't taken from Saturn, which I'm kind of going down the camp that it wasn't, that would imply that the immortality and the devil fruits are 2 separate things, which up until this point we weren't aware of. Like a lot of us assumed that the immortality came with the devil fruits, but if you go down this line of thinking, then I would say that they are separate abilities that the Gorosei have. And you might be asking me, Jack, well, how come you're so confident that, Eam didn't take the Gyuki Devil Fruit power from Saturn and give it to Garling? I'm not confident, because either way, we don't know until we learn more information. The reason I don't think so is because, one, I think it might be a little bit boring to just, show a repeat of Saturn's power. And this reasoning is just from a storytelling, point of view. I reckon that Oda kind of showed a lot of different aspects of that power that he may not want to go into that again. But from a more practical standpoint, if we do run off the assumption that Garling and Shanks are related, then I imagine Garling's power is swordsmanship as well. Like, he'd be a great swordsman like Shanks with incredibly powerful haki, which would make it seem like a devil fruit like that to be quite limiting to Garling. But who knows? He may have got the Gyuki ancient spider fruit as well. I'll be very interested to find out. But the other aspect of this, of Saturn dying and how he died, that I wanted to get into, is it more technical than just Ian taking this power away? Is the power dictated by the position of, they're all gods of different things. The god of agriculture, the god of the environment, the god of justice, the god of finances, the god of science and defense. The Gorosei are positioned to rule over the main aspects that it would take to run the world, essentially. And is the power tied to that position? For instance, could, say, Garling never became the ruler of science and defense, the god of science and defense, could Eam bestow the immortality onto Garling without him holding that position? Now, you'd obviously think, like, why would Eam want Garling to have immortality if he wasn't going to be, like, a direct servant to himself, which is true. But I'm talking about more just from a technical standpoint. Can Eam freely give this power out, or is it tied to the positions that we just went over? Because they're very specific and very important positions that are essential for the survival of the world government. So I wonder if the power is tied to the position, or if Eam can just do whatever he wants with it, essentially. But, like, you know, this is mainly a Saturn video. I'll probably chuck Saturn up in the thumbnail. But I also want to go over Eam here, because this is an interesting power that we see. Power bestowal and taketh away. It's similar to All for One, if any of you have watched My Hero Academia, with the ability to take and give back, to take the power back and to bestow power onto others. So, like, is it as simplistic as Eam having, like, the All for One ability to be able to take powers and devil fruits and give them to people? Now, I know I know immediately what you guys are thinking. Jack, that is way, way too powerful. We already have Blackbeard who's able to steal devil fruits, but we know he has, well, at least we assume, has that actually ever been... It's never been stated that how many devil fruits are the limit for Blackbeard to acquire, has it? I know a lot of people assume 3 because of the skulls, but let me know down that in the comments. Am I completely blanking? That's never been stated, but let's just assume the cap for Blackbeard is 3, and that if Eam can just take on every different, like, devil fruit that he steals, you know, like, that's incredibly overpowered. Especially because devil fruits in general are probably more powerful than, like, quirks in My Hero. And I'm talking about more powerful in a quantity standpoint, in the sense that the more average devil fruits are stronger than the more average quirks. Obviously, you know, there are some quirks that are stronger than devil fruits and vice versa. But on the whole, I reckon devil fruits are probably more lethal and dangerous than quirks. Because some of the quirks are quite more mundane quirks. You never really just get a mundane, like, devil fruit, for instance. So if like Eam had even 10 devil fruits, you could say he's, like, the most, like, it just would be implausible for him to lose. But I ask this: what happens if his power isn't to, like, take and accumulate power into himself, but to accumulate the power to make himself stronger? But what happens if the power is to take the devil fruit away and he can hold on to that devil fruit, but he can't do anything with it? Like, he can't empower himself. He can only bestow it to other people. Now, it's an interesting take on that, you know, the stealing power, because stealing an ability or copying ability has become much, much more mainstream. If you guys remember 20 years ago, the Sharingan, being able to copy powers, like, there weren't many other abilities back then that were doing similar things to that. But now we have just, like, every main series, not just in anime, in Marvel and in comic books and in any fantasy type of genre, there's usually some sort of copying / stealing ability. But it'd be interesting to see someone be able to steal and give power without being able to take that power on themselves. The reason why I'm kind of going down this line of thought is because it makes Eam's power be very, very nebulous if he can do things like that on top of, like, 5 other different abilities. It's interesting to see what route Oda is going to go down in this. Is this all still devil fruit territory? Or are we getting into magic? Are we getting into divine abilities here? Are we getting into supreme technology that we haven't seen before yet? Like Ancient Kingdom level stuff. We don't know. And I'm curious. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this video. I really want to see what people's thoughts are on what happened to Saturn, and more specifically what Eam did to him and what that means for the future of the story. So that's why I want you guys to let me know down in the comments. It's if you guys are wondering why I haven't done a whole chapter review like I usually do, it it hasn't been my chapter reviews haven't been getting much exposure from my fan base. I imagine a lot of you, if you haven't read the chapter yourselves and are not interested in it, you'd go to more, the bigger 500 plus 500, not 500 plus 500,000 plus YouTubers who do it the day that it drops and stuff like that, which I totally makes sense to me. If if in the future more people want me to do whole reviews on the chapters again, I'll definitely do that for you. But in the future, I'm just gonna pick the main aspects of what's happened in the chapter and just do a video solely on that, rather than having to just go through each panel and tell you the content that you guys probably already know. If you're not afraid of spoilers, then you guys have all already read this chapter, I imagine. But I thought, I think it was a couple of days ago the chapter came out, was really, really interesting, the new revelations that Oda dropped on us. But that's about it for tonight's video. Let me know, once again, down in the comments, what everything you've thought about Saturn. Obviously, if he's an arsehole. I'd be very curious, does anyone really like Saturn's character? Let me know down in the comments. Like, I'm not glad he's dead. I reckon it's actually kind of a genius narrative plot from Oda to do that, because it's a perfect way to shine more light on Garling. Because how else were we going to kind of learn more about him? Oda's done a terrific job giving him exposure and just changing things up a little bit so it doesn't get stale. So I really loved what he was able to do there. And let me know what your future predictions on Garling are. But other than that, I will shout out next video that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing a video on Garp. That's coming next. Hopefully in the next couple of days. My uploading schedule has become 3 to 4 days lately. A bit longer from the daily ones that I were doing, but life's just really kicking me in the ass at the moment. And I don't want to get overwhelmed by everything and stop doing YouTube videos. So for right now, content like this is how I'm going to be doing it every few days. But hopefully, if a day comes around and I don't have much on, I'll definitely put it out for you. Especially because I might not be chucking photos on, so it's as simple as coming on, speaking, and then just uploading it. But after the Garp video, if you guys are Bleach fans, and I've got a Giselle video coming for you guys. But I've been Jack Cypher. It's been a pleasure deciphering St. J. Garcia Saturn. Rest in peace. Actually not. I don't really give a fuck what happens to you. And everything about Eam and potential powers. But guys, have a lovely night. Peace out.